Welcome to Babaobaba channel. Today, we'll take everyone to hear the story of a normal businessman who was killed. Even so, he was turned into a senseless being known as a zombie. Okay, so as not to be a waste of time, let's go listen to the story of the zombie, of the Marvel Universe. The zombie is a fictional supernatural character in the Marvel Comics universe, who starred in the black and white horror comic magazine series Tales of the Zombie in stories mostly by Steve Gerber and Pablo Marcos. However, the character had originated 20 years earlier in the standalone story Zombie by Stan Lee and Bill Everett, published in the horror anthology comic book Menace issue number 5 in July 1953 from Marvel Forerunner Atlas Comics. Simon Garth was the senior partner of Garwood Industries, the South's leading coffee distributor. He was a rich businessman and a well-known public figure. He was, however, also known to be excessively cruel to his employees. On one such day, Simon was criticizing his gardener Gyps, along with his shears, and later verbally and physically harmed him after the man caught a peek at his daughter named Donna Garth, while skinny dipping. That evening, an inebriated Gyps returned to the Garth estate for revenge. He smashed an empty whiskey bottle across the back of his head, and tied him up. He brought him out to the voodoo camp deep in the swamp and offered him to the practitioners as a human sacrifice. What neither Garth nor Gyps knew, however, was that the voodoo mambo was actually Layla, Simon Garth's office secretary. She was secretly in love with him, and could not bring herself to take his life, so she set him free. Simon continues to run for his life. But unfortunately, Gyps manages to circle around the swamp and finally catch up to him. Suddenly, he stabs him in the chest with a sacrificial knife until Simon died and returns his body to the camp. He excavates a shallow grave and places Simon's body inside. Gyps is still angry, however, as he does not feel that Simon had suffered enough before dying. So, he grabs Layla, and while holding a knife to her throat, forces her to conduct a ritual that will raise Simon Garth from the dead. The ritual works, and Simon rises from his own grave as an undead zombie. Simon promptly went on a killing frenzy until one of the voodoo cultists threw the amulet of Dambalat around his neck. Then the creature stops moving, which allowed Gyps to control him, since he had the other part of the amulet. Whomever now wore the amulet was able to control the zombie. Gyps makes him to slave and orders the zombie to go into the swamp until he is ready to summon him. The zombie differs from his undead kin in that his soul still inhabits his body. As a result, he is fully aware of his actions and surroundings. He is impervious to pain and does not need to eat, sleep, or breathe. And that is the origin of the zombie, in Marvel Universe. Simon Garth as the zombie wanders through the swamps of Louisiana, until it is time to answer the call of his master, Gyps. Later, Gyps orders the zombie to kidnap his own daughter. He plans on staging her rescue from the zombie in order to gain her affection. The zombie breaks into his daughter's room, but feels an uncontrollable urge to turn away, because a part of Simon Garth's humanity recalls this woman as his own daughter. The zombie returns to the garden shed and strangles Gyps. He can resist his master despite Gyps has amulet. Finally, Gyps was killed by his slave the zombie. Simon then wanders back to his own shallow grave and lies down. After Gyps died, Simon Garth walked the earth as a zombie for 2 years and was controlled by a succession of people who possessed the mystic amulet. Among them were a chemist named Philip Bliss, a houngan or also known as voodoo priest named Papa Shorty, and a fireman named Fred Miller, which he was ordered by each person to do all kinds of things. Finally, each man also died at the hands of zombies. But then he had a chance to become human again, even for a short time, when under the control of Fred Miller. Miller's friend named Dora Katz commanded the zombie to attack a voodoo priestess. Ironically, it turns out to be Layla. He smashed into her head, meaning to kill her. But she is not dead yet. When Layla revives, she pulls off the amulet of Damballa around the zombie's neck, giving the creature free will. Furious at being used for such horrible deeds, the zombie then tracks down Fred Miller and his party-goers and beats them all to death. Then, The zombie takes the morally wounded Layla to Papa Doc, the voodoo master, where he proclaims that Lalia is not going to survive her injury. After a moment alone to tell Layla so, she is disappointed that she cannot rescue Simon Garth from his curse of becoming a zombie. However, she decides to sacrifice her soul so that the zombie can at least spend 24 hours in his human form once more. The ritual is a success, and Simon Garth is restored back to be a human. After waking up, he remembered everything and asked for Layla, however Layla's body is taken away by the Lao in the process. Simon is grateful for at least that much time and decides to spend the time tying up the loose ends in his life that have been unresolved ever since he became the zombie. His first order of business is to call the cops and identify the voodoo practitioners who transformed him into the zombie in the first place, and they are all apprehended. After that, Simon returned to own mansion and met his butler. The butler was greeting and shocked at his return, and informs Simon that his daughter is to be married today. When he knows that, so, he followed to his daughter's wedding. Simon meets with old friend Anton Cartier at his daughter's wedding to explain what's going on. After that he met his daughter, Donna, was very happy that his father came. He gives his daughter his blessing for her marriage to Bruce Mason, and finally he reconciles with his ex-wife. After that, Simon went on to manage the legacy. And everything else was finished until the end. He began to turn into a zombie again. He returned to Papa Doc before using Papa Doc's gris bottle, which had the power to kill him. With the zombie finally dead, the two men Papa Doc and Anton Cartier bury their old friend. However, Simon's rest was not for long. Years passed, and Simon once again rose from his grave. In New Orleans, he was resurrected by the voodoo witch Calypso, who killed a voodoo priest Papa Doc, and stole one of the amulets of Damballa, which allowed her to resurrect and control Simon Garth, though she soon abandoned him to his own fate. Later, after he rise, the amulet of Damballa that he had worn for so many years had disappeared, and he instinctively started searching for it. His investigation led him to New York City, where he unintentionally found the amulet in the hands of Daily Bugle employee named Glory Grant. However, the amulet was imbued with the spirit of Calypso. Glory has been possessed by Calypso's spirit after it was trapped in the amulet of Damballa. That made Glory find her body in order to resurrect according to she will. At Cypress Hills Cemetery, Glory has her cousin Ramon Grant dig up the body of Calypso. Once the body has been unearthed, Calypso intends to put the amulet on her body and resurrect herself. Before she can accomplish this, she is confronted by the zombie, who is still attracted to the amulet of Damballa. Then Calypso orders Ramon to fight off the zombie. That's when they're interrupted by Spider-Man, who has tracked down his enemy and confronted with the zombie. As the two struggle, Calypso explains how she used voodoo in order to cheat death after her physical body was mortally wounded by the lizard. However, despite the interference from both Spider-Man and the zombie, Calypso intends to regain control of the amulet and use it to resurrect herself. Where Spider-Man offers to assist for this is the only way to free his friend Glory from Calypso's power. In battle, the zombie has killed Ramon. Spider-Man quickly recovers the amulet of Damballa with his webbing and distracts the zombie while Calypso begins her incantation. Despite his best efforts, Spider-Man was defeated by the zombie. But, before the zombie can kill him, Glory Grant is now back in full control of her body. She commands the zombie to stop. She then hands the amulet over to him and the zombie walks away. Glory explains in the aftermath of the battle that Calypso finished the ritual and then left the scene until she was back in her old body. A short time later, the zombie wanders through the streets of Greenwich Village and attacks several pedestrians. There is one day, a wealthy student of the arcane named Kelsey Pierce acquired one of the amulets and offered it to the vampire Lilith Drake, in the hope that she would reciprocate by turning him into a vampire. Lilith accepted the gift, but she killed Pierce rather than turning him into a vampire. Which that amulet is amulets of Damballa. That means she can control of Simon Garth, and used him as her personal servant, forcing him to attack innocents and drag them back to her lair. Meanwhile, daughter of Simon, Donna Garth, hired vampire private investigator Hannibal King to find the amulets and bring her father back to New Orleans. Hannibal King's investigation led him to New York, where he found himself teaming up with Spider-Man in order to take down Lilith. Spider-Man and Hannibal King decide to team up to track Lilith down. King tells him about the amulet, and that the zombie is actually responsible for the recent abductions. They track Lilith to her hair, and resume their fight. In this fight, daughter of vampire wants to enslave King, and turn him into her personal vampire general. However, King naturally refuses the offer, and finally succeeds in snatching the amulet of Dambalap. He then orders the zombie to attack Lilith. Finally, she fled, just as the sun begins to rise in the sky. After battle, Hannibal King gave the amulet to Simon Garth's daughter, Donna Garth. She took control over her dead father's body and brought him back to New Orleans, where her home was. When Donna Garth had returned with her undead father to New Orleans, she controlled her father to avenge the death of one of her best friends and classmates, Angelina Billiard, whom was the victim of a voodoo doctor that hired by Narcisse. Narcisse wanted voodoo doctor to do the occult on Donna friends. But, instead of making love potion, he made a potion turned into a zombie instead. Which this voodoo doctor had given her classmate a lethal potion, turning her into a zombie as well. The zombie broke through the walls of the house that harbored the voodoo doctor and almost instantly killed him. And now for the narcissist. Donna fulfilled his wish by sending him to live forever with the zombie Angelina in her grave, in order to get the karma for what he did to her friends. After that event, Donna vowed, with the help of her undead father, to stop every walking dead from that moment on, but she has not been seen again from that point on. The zombie turned up again years later. In a city, a squad of firefighters and medics sift through the remains of many destroyed buildings. Marvin, one of the medics, discovers the desiccated body of Simon Garth buried under the foundation, which he thought was still alive cause he could see him moving. Then he brings the corpse to Gerber Hospital. To be sure, Simon was pulse tested again. But no surprise, then he was placed inside the morgue. Later that evening, the zombie rises from the metal table and examines the body of a nearby cadaver. Sensing no life at all whatsoever, he turns around and climbs out the window. The zombie shuffles down the street, whereupon he finds a lowlife attacking a defenseless woman. The zombie breaks the assailant's neck, then stares down at the horrified would-be victim. He wipes a tear away from the woman's face and tastes it. That shows even though he is like this, but he still has humanity. Later, the zombie comes upon 3 inebriated partiers hanging out front of a nightclub called the Rabbit's Hole. The female partier named Kissy is sexually attracted to the zombie and even begins feeling him up. She wants the zombie to strangle her and make her to corpse bride, but she grows angry when the zombie refuses to end her life. Kissy and her friends begin attack and almost kill the zombie. But fortunately a police officer were examined in that area and has entered. Suddenly the thugs flee. The police then radios for an ambulance to arrive to take care of the zombie. The zombie is taken back to Gerber Hospital and placed in the morgue again. He gets up from the table and approaches the female cadaver that he examined earlier. Her body twitches slightly, and it becomes clear that she too is now a zombie. With Lonely, he scoops the body up, and sneaks back out through the window. He brings his new corpse bride to a shallow grave, and the two lay down together. Later, during the event that zombies from other universes came to the Earth-616. Simon Garth was recently kept contained by Alternate Reality Monitoring and Operational Response Agency, or also known as ARMOR. The zombie escaped his cell but got attacked and intend to eat him by the zombie Captain American, or also known as Captain Mexica, from Earth-1519. But the zombie didn't taste good to him. When having survived Captain Mexica, then he found the severed moving head of zombie Deadpool and took him and escaped through ARMOR's portal generator. For the zombie Deadpool has come from Earth-2149, the zombie-verse. They ended up in the Atlantic Ocean and were attacked by the menfish, but they fought them off and spread the zombie contagion to them that turned them into zombies. The Menfish attacked the SS Tranquility, a Royal Swedish cruise liner, and killing most of the crew. That makes the Midnight Suns with team member including Morbius, the living vampire, werewolf by night, Jennifer Kale, of the Witches, and Hellstorm, son of Satan. This team were called in to track the virus and cure it. Which while the Midnight Suns are fighting with those zombies Menfish, the zombie and head of Zombie Deadpool embark with their journey, where they encounter Black Talon, who instantly sees the zombie virus as a marketable weapon to deal with some of his criminal friends, namely the Hood. The zombie and Zombie Deadpool are later locked up in Black Talon's dungeon. Later, the Zombie Deadpool bit one of Black Talon's henchmen, causing an outbreak in which Zombie Deadpool breaks him and the zombie out of the dungeon and go out in the open town of Tyno, home of Black Talon. Meanwhile, the Midnight Suns who were battling the zombies faced an even worse situation, when Morbius attacks the zombies with his explosive vaccine, but it mutates into something deadlier. The vaccine instead causes the virus to be airborne and become to the undead cloud. The Zombie Deadpool and Simon Garth are joyously walking in a small town scaring the locals when all of a sudden the undead cloud covers the town, killing the people and turning them into zombies. Deadpool and Zombie have no effect on them. With the Man-Thing has been released by Jennifer Kale following them. Later, Deadpool and Simon are encountered by the security force of superhumans known as Wicked Brigade. All of a sudden the undead cloud covers the Wicked Brigade, ripping them apart and then turning them into one bigger powerful super zombie. Suddenly Man-Thing attacks the super zombie and the two duel it out violently. However, the super zombie removes Man-Thing from the earth and slowly the undead cloud destroys Man-Thing, making him crumble into pieces. Zombie Deadpool and Simon Garth stand at the remains of Man-Thing. Deadpool at this point is fed up with running and wishes that he were dead. However, the cloud sends the super zombie to attack the Midnight Suns, trying to stop the containing of the virus. Werewolf and Morbius are defeated, but all of a sudden, Man-Thing turns out to be alive and attacks the super zombie and kills it with his burning death touch. After the fight they still need a host for the virus, and all of a sudden Simon Garth comes in the room with a burning mask that belonged to the Zombie Deadpool. Zombie offers his body to be a host of the virus. Morbius then tells the Hollow to stop the nuke launch. Finally, the zombie virus has been stopped and Simon Garth is sent to be contained there. Werewolf and the crew of the night shift are cured from the zombie infection into their human forms. Meanwhile, somewhere in the ocean, the zombie head of Deadpool floats away in the distance. Later, the zombie was recruited by Phil Coulson to join his incarnation of the Howling Commandos with Living Mummy, Man-Thing, and Frankenstein's monster, in order to combat Dormammu's mindless plague. What will the life of Simon Garth be like from now on? Must continue to follow him in future. Even though it is a character that does not have many chapters. But it was able to color the Marvel comic universe as the original character of the zombies as well.